Welcome to another tutorial making a survival game with Ultimate Survival, and in this video we'll be adding a backpack. The purpose of the backpack will be to increase our inventory from this standard 6 slots to 18. So when I equip it, you see my inventory now goes up and I can move things into it. And if I take off my backpack, some of these items will try to go back into my inventory if they're available to, and if they can't, they'll just get thrown on the floor. I mean, it's a little bit basic, but you can really use this for something like leveling up your character. If you level him up, he gets more inventory, or like a temporary boost where if you've eaten something you become stronger, you can carry some more things. So you'll see here I've dropped it or taken it off, and these items are now in my inventory. If I look on the floor, here's the pickaxe that I was previously carrying that I didn't have enough space for. Okay, so there's going to be quite a bit of scripting involved, so let's pop into Unity and start playing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop over to the inventory controller. We're just going to edit the script to make one of the private variables public. Okay, so in the inventory controller, if we scroll down and we find here the private integer for inventory size. So this basically tells us how big our inventory is going to be. Now, even though it's serialized, it's just our public, so our private rather. So we want to make that public, and that's all we really need to do. We save this now. We'll be able to use m_inventory size in other components. Okay, so now we want to pop into all my stuff. I've just created this folder for scripts, and then there I created a new C# script by going create C# script, and I called it affect inventory. In the last video I was talking and typing at the same time, and my brain really couldn't handle it, so I was getting a lot of typos. This time I've already written up my scripts, so we're just going to walk through it, and well, hopefully it'll be a little bit more interesting rather than watching me type and click delete about 50 million times. So let's pop into your favorite editor. Okay, so here we are in my script. We're going to be using the GUI system from Ultimate Survival. If you don't put that in, you're going to get some red errors. So don't forget, put your namespace Ultimate Survival.GUI system, and here's my class for affect inventory. So I only really need 2 variables. Everything else will be calling from the character equipment script later on. So the first one we've got is a private integer for the total number of slots that we've got in our inventory, and here's a public bool to say if we're wearing our backpack or not. And we've got the hide inspector, so we don't show that in the inspector because you don't really need it. We're only going to use it from this script later. We've got my set inventory function. Basically this gets called at the start of the game whenever you load up, and if you've got an inventory of 48 items, this script or this function here will then decrease it down to whatever you're telling it to. Not bad, eh? Okay, so total inventory slots is this total inv slots, and we're going to get a count of here the get inventory. Now when you're using this function in the other script, you're going to have to be checking through a number. On here you're going to be checking through the inventory controller here, and you're going to be putting the inventory container here. Now we're checking here to make sure that we don't already have a backpack on. And now this is the bit where we're saying we're going to decrease the size of our inventory. The start size of our inventory, so in mine I was saying 6, and we're checking to make sure that anything from 6 and above until you get to the total, we want to be turning them off. So interactable is going to be false, and set active is going to be false. Now if you don't do this one here, you will still see it, you just won't be able to drop anything into it. There's also got the raycast that you can turn off as well, but because we've got the set active false, we don't really need to start playing that with the raycast. Alright, so this bit here is the part that then sets the inventory size down to whatever you wanted it to be here. So now that we've turned everything else off, we can actually make sure that the inventory size is cropped down to 6, or in my case going to be passing through the number 6. Okay, this is the bigger function for removing the backpack. I'll go to that last. Let's all the way down to the adding backpack. See, this one's much smaller than the remove one, so it's a lot easier to swallow. So much like the set, we're passing through start size of our inventory, but also passing through the size of the backpack, and again the same inventory controller and item container. Now we set our slot count to 0, and this is going to be the size of our inventory, which is the total size, you can call it. So the size of our backpack plus the size that you started with. So in my case, backpack's 12 and we started with 6, so our total size is 18. Now we're going to basically go through all of the slots of our inventory, and like we did when we decreased our inventory when we started the game, we're going to be increasing the size of our inventory. So a lot of fun. So you've already increased the inventory size now to 18 in this case, and now you need to start turning on all of those slots. So you go through until you get to 18, and then you make sure that the interactable is true and the set active is true. And each time you're iterating through the slots, we're just increasing our slot count by 1, so that until we get to the max, which is here, we'll make sure that you stop going through them. And then we say that our backpack is on. See, it's true. Really simple. So basically, it's backwards, it's the reverse of what we did at the start when you set the inventory. Now, here's the really long one. Now, the remove backpack function is a lot more complicated. Well, not really a lot more complicated, it's just a lot more detailed, because now we've got something in our backpack, we need to know what to do with it. Are we going to drop it on the floor, or are we going to try and put it back in our inventory? So when you're calling this function, we need to pass through 4 arguments. One of them is the size of the backpack, how much we started with our inventory controller, and our item container. Very straightforward. And our total inventory size, and then I'm going to call these temporary variables. This total inventory size, total imp size, is basically the size of our backpack. So in my case it's 12, and the start size of our inventory, in my case it was 6. This is basically working out how many slots we've got left available, and if our inventory size is greater than how many slots we've got left, then we're basically capping our total inventory size to our remaining slots. So you can't really have more slots than your total inventory will support. Now we go through, I'm going to basically talk about this for loop and this other nested for loop before we start going through them. This for loop goes through every slot in your backpack to see, does it have something and what am I going to do with it. And this for loop goes through every slot in your original inventory size and says, is there anything in there? Can I drop something from my backpack in there? Very straightforward. I mean, it looks like a lot of text just because I've zoomed in so much. So like we had in our set inventory, we go through our backpack inventory slots, call it the backpack inventory. It's just the same inventory, it's just the slots from number 6 onwards. So from those slots, basically turning them off. So you can see here that we're starting our for loop from the 6th one, because that was the size of my inventory originally, and we keep going until we get to the total inventory size. Now here we've got basically our if statement that says, do you have something in that slot? If there's nothing in the slot, there's no point doing all of this, looking for all of these funky bits of code. We just go on to the next one. Added to the slot, this is how many things were added to the slot. This is how many things were in the slot to begin with. So if I was carrying 20 sticks, this would be 20. This is how many you've got left after you try to add some into your inventory, and this is how many you actually added into your inventory. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And this item data, this is the thing that you actually have in your original backpack slot. So these are my sticks, and this is the size of them, so 20 in the stack, 20 sticks. And this is just the number of the slot when we're going through iterating So you see you're using it, so we iterate through our nested for loop. Alright, so try to add as much notation as I can, put some comments in there, so try to add the item. So the backpack to the main inventory, like I just said. Now if it's a stack, we are trying to add into the stack, into the inventory, and what's left we drop on the floor. Now this is our for loop for going through the inventory. So we see, is there anything in this slot? If there's nothing in this slot, then we're going to try and add our sticks or whatever we had in our backpack slot. Yeah, this is the total amount that was in that stack, and this is outputting how much we were able to add from that stack. So hopefully these two numbers would match. Now if they don't match, it means that you've actually got something that you've got left over to add. Whatever you've got left to add, we're going to drop it on the floor. So that's this try drop item. See, very straightforward. And then we set our item to null. If you don't do this, then you basically have always got that item in your backpack and you've dropped it on the floor. So if you want to have some nice little bugs in your game to give people infinite loot, then this is what you forget to put in your game. So if I went through every item, every slot in my original inventory, so all 6 in my case, and I couldn't basically find any available space, then I would come down to here and I'll drop it on the floor. I'll drop everything on the floor that I had in that one slot in my backpack, and then set again to null like we had above. Then we'll go through the next slot in the backpack and we'll do the same thing. We'll go through every slot in the inventory and we'll say, hey, have you got any empty slots? If you do, let's try to add it. If you don't have any available slots, we'll drop it on the floor. And then again and again until you've gone through all of the slots of your backpack that you had and you've cleared out your inventory. Alright, see? Very straightforward. The last thing that we want to do is actually make use of this, because you've saved this affect inventory script and you don't call any of these functions anywhere, so it doesn't actually do anything. Now I'll keep going back to the character equipment script, and let's just put this word wrap back to 120 columns like the other one was. It's a little bit easier to read. This is the same character equipment script that we were playing about the other day when we added our UMA. And the thing I've added here are these. Here we've got a public integer for the backpack size. Got this inside the equipment piece like we had our public strings for our UMA slots. So pretty much exactly the same thing. We've got here hide in inspector, so we don't see it in the inspector because we don't need to. We just need to make sure that it's there that we can use it. And down here underneath our legacy and our UMA settings, we've got here inventory settings that I've just created. So we've got a private game object for the inventory, and we've got here a private inventory controller, and we've got here the container get inventory. Now I just use the same names as I had in the affect inventory script. You don't need to, it just made it easier for me when I was playing about. Okay, so here's our public integer for the inventory start size, and actually it's getting its value from this private serialized private integer, which was the M inventory start size. And now when you look in the editor and you put a 6 in or a 5 or whatever, you're updating this, that then in turn updates this one. Okay, and then we've got here the script that I'm calling, which is this one here, affect inventory, and again I just called it the same name as my script, just a lowercase a. Now in the void start, see I had this before, just to let you know that if you are using the other method of private affect inventory, blah, 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 you know, the name, your script and object, and you do it this way, this only works if you are not using that mono behavior at the top. So you get some weird warnings telling you that you shouldn't be using this. So instead, I'm basically adding the script to the character game object, which also has this character equipment. So that's this affect inventory, which is this one here, equals transform.gameObject add component my script. So I'm adding my script to it. Okay, so now we're going to set the inventory size. So this is the get inventory, and like we had in the previous tutorials, we're basically getting the component for the item container, and here is my set inventory function that we're calling from the affect inventory, and I'm passing through the size, which is from here, and I'm passing through the item controller, the inventory controller rather, which is this fellow up here, and I'm passing through my get inventory, which is this fellow here. I got all this on the start, so basically I can say that my inventory from the in the editor I've got 48 items in it, but if I put this value to 6 whenever I load the game up, it will only actually show 6. And down here underneath our UMA, I've added in the backpack script. So basically now in the same if statement of holder has item that we were playing about with the other day, we've got here holder has item, and the holder has a current item, and that current item property is container size. And we're going to then go into the editor in a moment, and we're going to add container size, one of the properties. So we're going to make sure that our backpack is not on, so that's what this lovely exclamation mark is saying, and we've got here the backpack size is going to be the value from the item management, which we'll add in a moment. It will be in the container size. That's got to be an integer, otherwise you'll get some weird errors like you won't actually see anything in your inventory. And we're going to call now our add backpack function. We're passing through the size of our backpack. Make sure that you've got piece.sig, or piece dot, and then the backpack size, otherwise it won't be passing through the right variable. So that's basically saying that this is the backpack size for the item that you've dropped in. And this is the start size we had at the start, which was in our case 6, and our inventory controller and our get inventory. Okay, very straightforward, because you've done all the work here. You basically, all you've got to do is call a function. And likewise, when you're taking off again, down the bottom here, underneath, more above the UMA this time, I've put here, it will make sure that the backpack is on. So this is my if statement. If it's on, then we're going to remove the backpack, and it's exactly the same arguments that we put through and adding a backpack. So pretty much takes you 3 seconds to do a copy and a paste. Lovely. Alright, now we're going to pop in to Unity, and we're going to add some properties and actually add a backpack. Alright, so when you click on Tools, Ultimate Survival, Item Management, and let's go to Property Editor. Down here I've added a container size, and to do that I basically just clicked on this. I'll remove it, we can do it again together. So clicked on the plus, change that to an integer, and I've got this here, container size. I promised that I wouldn't type and talk, and I broke that promise. I'm sorry. So container size, make sure this is spelled exactly the same as you had in your script, otherwise it won't work. Okay, now in the item editor I added a backpack. Now you can put that, do it whatever you want. You could have it as a magic sword that increases your inventory, or whatever you want it to be, the magic headband of wonder. In my case it's just a backpack, and I called this backpack, and I used this icon that we got with one of those free kits in the previous tutorials, and I said here can carry things, and I added, if I just remove this, I added this container size that we did, and I called it container size and a value of 12. And carries, I put here a 2 because that's a 0, that's a 1, that's 2, so it can carries 2 of here, so that's 12 items. Alright, that was it. That's all we had to do in the item management. Now we need to do is find where are you hiding? Here it is, character. Now don't forget, even if you add it in the item management, you still need to add it here in the equipment pieces. So previously this was 13, and I increased it to 14, So let's do it again together. And I changed my classes to backpack. And you don't need to have a game object. And remember, this was our legacy. And you can put object in if you wanted to, if you've got a backpack. But in my case, this demo, we're just literally just adding an inventory item, so we're not affecting the player model. And here are our new variables that we added in our script. So the inventory, you need to drag the number 2 inventory here into here, and the inventory controller is the one that's nested into your player. So go to male player, inventory controller, here he is. You drag him into the inventory controller. And this was my start size of my inventory, so 6. I can change this to 2, change it to 2, let's click play and see what happens. I click tab, see I've only got 2 things. So that, put that back to 6. Okay, so that was it. We've added in our backpack. I think I've remembered everything. I hope I have. My trousers on and my glasses. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them to me either on Facebook or Twitter or the Unity forums or even on YouTube. So guys, that was it. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did like it, click it. So see you next time. If you want to see more on the Ultimate Survival series, click on the links on the left side of your screen. And if you like these videos and you want to see more of them, please click subscribe. It's in that big button that's down below. And there's next to it, there's a little magic bell. And when you click that bell, it tells you when there's a new video out. So cheers, thanks for all the support.